Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Business First Creatives podcast. Today, I am speaking with Tania Bhattacharyya, a LinkedIn specialist. Now, if you're a business person, you've probably heard of LinkedIn, you probably have a profile. Photographers, do not turn this off yet. I promise we are going to speak to LinkedIn in a way that you are going to understand, and maybe you will be like me and finally create a profile. Tania, good afternoon, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, it's so good to be here. I'm thrilled. I'm a big fan of this podcast. I've shared this with you before in the DMs and various places. So I am so excited to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. I love your podcast too. It's so nice to be able to tell my guests that. So, Tania, I don't know if you remember this. I think we first met in some kind of system saved me arena like a
Yeah.
while ago, and I said very nonchalantly, "Yeah, as photographers, we don't do LinkedIn." I do finally have a profile. I'm pretty sure when I
Yay!
spoke to you initially, I didn't have a profile. But what I still can't get over is that it's just not very user friendly in the way that photographers tend to use it. So, first, why don't you give us a little bit of background on who you are, what you do, and how you got into LinkedIn in the first place?
Yeah, that sounds great. So, like you mentioned, I'm Tania Bhattacharya. I really found LinkedIn when I was in the nonprofit space. So before I started my consulting company, I was a nonprofit executive director, and most of my time was spent marketing, fundraising, building relationships, trying to pound the pavement, getting people to, learn about our mission
Mhm.
and hopefully someday support it. And I just found LinkedIn was a really untapped, unsaturated place where everybody in my sphere of influence kind of was. Like they had a LinkedIn profile, they checked it every now and then, but nobody was really maximizing it in my sector and in my field. Nobody was really sharing the stories of the organizations they worked for. Nobody was really like sending DMs to build relationships, right? And so I challenged myself to try and do that. I figured every day there's dozens of stories and dozens of amazing things happening that I could share, and I'm just not. So what would happen if I did? And I started this experiment. And at first, I'm very open about this. At first, it felt like nothing was happening. like crickets, nothing was going on. But I kept at it because to be honest, like I kind of found it was kind of fun. Like, yes, it took time, but there was a little bit of a process of self-actualization, like sharing stories, sharing my perspective, talking about my opinion, sharing why I cared about something, right? Even if it felt like nobody was listening at first. And over time, slowly but surely, I'd show up to a, local conference. Someone would say, I really loved what you shared on LinkedIn 2 weeks ago. Like
Ooh.
it really made me think about this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, really? Like you never liked it. Like you never comment. Like what? Really? But that just kept happening. And then this like exponential piece started happening where I found that not just me, but the organization I represented grew a really large voice for being a relatively small shop. And it just showed me how powerful LinkedIn could be. And so as I started my creative business, so now I really help, change makers share their stories primarily on LinkedIn, but other places as well. I just tapped into the power of LinkedIn because the reality is it's like that flexible Rolodex where so many people from our past, our corporate jobs, our, people we've served on panels with, people we've hired, years gone by are on there, whether or not they switch jobs, whether or not they change up what they're doing. It's a really great way to stay in touch with like this business community that we've built over the years.
Okay, thinking about it as a Rolodex, Tanya, I think that just blew my mind for a moment. Because the thing is, I mean, everybody on the podcast knows I'm old. I'm 44. I was in like the Facebook age when Facebook first came out. So it was still when you had to have a college email account in
I
order to get onto
remember.
Facebook. Yeah. And so Facebook was kind of that place that you like found your old classmates. And so what
Right.
I hear you saying is that LinkedIn is that version for your old business associates. And so for myself, I think I missed the boat on LinkedIn because initially when I was a college professor and I was working and I was getting all of these jobs, I wasn't like advertising on LinkedIn. LinkedIn wasn't a thing. And then I spent this very brief amount of time, at home. I wasn't teaching anymore, but I didn't have my own business yet. And I think that is when LinkedIn started to grow. But I wasn't looking for a job then. And then when I opened my own business as a photographer, like I just never thought of LinkedIn as a place I needed to be because that's not where you find photography clients. But like thinking about it as a Rolodex of your old business associates, I mean, that's fascinating because I would bet that if I looked up, all the people I went to grad school with, they're all tenured professors at this point. I bet you all of them have LinkedIn accounts. That's just a really interesting
100%.
way of thinking about it. So I think LinkedIn has changed probably the most from what it started with to what it is now. So initially, LinkedIn was just somewhere that you like put your resume, right? I mean, you connected
Right.
with old business people, but you put your resume. Can you tell us about the current features on LinkedIn and how it has expanded what it used to be when it was first created?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in a lot of ways, like, you talked about Facebook, like LinkedIn is a dinosaur. Like LinkedIn has been around since 2003, which is actually even older than Facebook, older than MySpace, believe it or not. And so I think a lot of people still have this concept of LinkedIn as this like stuffy, sterile, Diane Mayer referred to it as TikTok's corporate grandpa, which I love. Like I say that all the time because I think it's so funny. And it's like there's some truth, there's a grain of truth to that because it did used to be just that place where you'd stick up your resume, like you said, you'd look for a job there. But much like the corporate world itself, much like the business world itself over the last couple of years, there's been sort of this humanization of all of it. And just like our workplaces have changed, like LinkedIn has changed. And they have especially changed like their algorithm and different parts of their platform to really be friendly to creators, right? And so while LinkedIn used to be focused on finding a job, hiring folks, stuff like that, today you really can build a personality driven brand on there to really promote your creative business and people are receptive. And so one of my favorite LinkedIn accounts to follow is a photographer and I found her by accident because so my dog Gary has his own Instagram account. And so one of the hashtags Gary likes to use is, hashtag dogs of Instagram. And then I got curious. I was like, is anybody using dogs of LinkedIn? Like, are there any dogs with LinkedIn's accounts? Like this was just like a weird afternoon where I didn't want to work, obviously. And so I went down this rabbit hole and I found this photographer whose whole thing is she specializes in brand photo shoots with business owners who want to get brand photography done
Yeah.
with their dogs. And I was like, this is so niche. This is so amazing. Unfortunately, she lives in the UK. So like I can't hire her unless I flew there with Gary. But I was like, this is brilliant. Like she has found such a unique, specific niche. And she's on a place like LinkedIn where no one else is really doing this. Like she's like the one game in town.
Mhm.
So I thought that was brilliant, right? So I think that's one example of how you can really showcase a really unique personality driven brand as a photographer or as a creative business owner on LinkedIn.
So I will say, what brought me to LinkedIn was the fact
What's
that
that?
I now help photographers with their business. And so I
Yeah,
do feel like if your end user is a business owner and you're taking branding photos, I do think all branding photographers need to be on LinkedIn. That is definitely where it's
100%.
at. I think that it's as myself because I started as just newborn and just family photography, like that isn't where I would connect with people who would be looking for a photographer. Because actually, this is a great segue, Tanya. One of the things that I've been discussing with people as they come onto the podcast and we're discussing different social media platforms is whether or not the users are using it as like a social media tool to connect with others or they're using it as like a search tool. Because I think
Yeah.
my mind was blown. Again, I'm showing my age. I think my mind was blown when someone told me that the millennials are using TikTok like we use Google. And I was like, wait, what?
Oh.
I was say that again. And she was like, yeah. She's like, if they want to know how to make chicken noodle soup from scratch, they're not going on YouTube. They're not Googling it. They're looking for someone who did a 30-second reel and gave a recipe. And I was like, shut up. I mean, clearly I'm not on TikTok enough. But so I think that's the other thing that I find so fascinating about LinkedIn is that initially, even though you were finding connections with your old business associates, like it's really a search tool. Like if you're looking for some information about a company, you might go find their LinkedIn page so that you can find out more information. And as LinkedIn has grown, it has become more of like what I would consider to be a social media tool in how it's fostering and humanizing, as you said, the connections between the people. But like, do you think that people are using LinkedIn more as a social media tool or are they still using it as like a search tool?
I think that's such a great question. I love this question. And I think that it is a beautiful blend of both. I really do. Because I think it depends on your goals as a creative business
Yes.
owner, right? Because like you can use it as a social media and post your stories, your perspectives, your pictures, right? Like your case studies, your insights, your opinions, your how-tos, like how to prepare for your newborn photo shoot when you are a full-time entrepreneur, right? Like that would be a beautiful thing to share on LinkedIn. I
I'm
see
gonna
you
write
with
that
your little pencil.
down.
Yeah. And as you do that, you will get inbound opportunities over time for sure. And you can use it as a search tool for lead generation and to find people with the title, people in the geographic location that you're in, which is especially important, I think, for photographers because they're a little bit more geographically bound than, say, like me, who's just an online business owner, period. You can filter down those searches by people who have common interests, people who have common connections, and so on and so forth, right? So like if I hired you to do a photo shoot with, I don't have any kids, but maybe me and my dog. Like,
Hmm.
let's say you did that.
I like dogs.
Yeah, he's my firstborn son. So what you could actually do is do a search for the people that I'm connected with, and then see, okay, these are all people. Like she's connected with a lot of people that could hire me as well,
Hmm.
right? And then you could ask me like, hey, can we do a case study? Can we feature you? Can we highlight you? And you could do a whole piece about that. And then LinkedIn would organically show the people in my network that piece. And so people would start to lean in and see this as an option for themselves, start to think about how they might want to, hire you for this kind of thing. And then as a follow up, what you could do is like, use the search tool to see the people that I'm connected with, maybe the people who engaged in the post. I guess what I'm trying to say here in kind of a roundabout way is I think that it's great when you use a combination of both because
Okay.
LinkedIn really does have a super, super powerful search tool to find people. Not so much TikTok in terms of finding like concepts. Like I
Hmm.
wouldn't use it like a Google or a YouTube, but I would definitely use it as like we said before, like it's a Rolodex. You can just search everybody you're connected with, people your second degree connections with, so I think it's a beautiful blend of both.
And the one thing that I didn't think of just until right now when you were speaking was I think that the algorithm is a little nicer on
Yeah.
LinkedIn in terms of networking than it is on like Instagram and Facebook because Instagram and Facebook are currently so saturated. But when you go
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, if I, for example, did something with you and I tagged you, it is actually more likely that your network on LinkedIn is going to actually see that content rather than if I tagged you on Instagram. Like it's not so oversaturated to where the platform is still helping you reach people that are connected to the people that you are tagging and interacting with in a much more organic way than it is on Instagram. Because like right now on Instagram, in order to get like more than 1% visibility, you've got to like boost a post or do something else in order to like finagle the algorithm. I recently heard someone say you have to give it a blood sacrifice. I feel like LinkedIn is still blood sacrifice friendly. Okay. You don't have to do it in order to use the platform wisely.
100%. And your inclination is super correct there. Like there's some stats that have been shared that, 900 million people are on LinkedIn and 12% of people that are on LinkedIn actually log in on a daily basis. So it's like people are definitely using LinkedIn. I'd say it's one of the big social media platforms for sure. But even though that's the case, only 3% of active users post content of their own. So we've got a lot of lurkers. We've got a lot of people who are on there that we don't necessarily know are on there. But they're watching, right? They're consuming, they're internalizing, they're building trust in you. And I feel like that stat really showcases the fact that you can still have a very beautiful organic imprint on LinkedIn. And you're right in that the whole algorithm was designed to get you in front of these business contacts
Mm-hmm.
to like increase your network. And one sort of, I guess you could call it a campaign or a strategy or something like that. Something that I really use as part of my pre-launch content that I think photographers could lean into, whether they're having like a launch or whether they're just looking for a couple of clients per month, is I do this thing every Sunday. I call it Social Impact Sunday Story. It's really long. It's a long hashtag, but pretty much all it is I invite a past client to share who they are, what they do. I highlight them on my LinkedIn and I include a little, like a sentence or two testimonial about their work with me. And so every Sunday I post that. And I notice that every Sunday or so, I get, maybe a dozen new followers just from that, because it's all of the people that person who has
Mhm.
been tagged in the post, right? Like the LinkedIn algorithm is showing it to people that I don't know yet, but because they have like trust built up in that person and that mutual connection, they trust me as well. And so that's a really organic way to just increase our followership over time. And I think that would be great for photographers who want to showcase different case studies and things like that.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I feel like what you're describing is what we all wish that Instagram would still do. I mean,
Yeah.
I myself, I don't even have that, a large following, but I have 3,500 people who have like raised their hand and say, "Oh, I want to follow you."
Yeah.
But like when you think about the fact that less than 1% of those people see
Mm.
anything that I post, even though they've said, "Hey, I like your content, Instagram, show me more of it." It doesn't get seen. So the fact that
Yeah.
you still have that organic reach on LinkedIn, I think means that many more people should hop onto the LinkedIn bandwagon and start posting content. Speaking of content, let's talk about videos because I
Yes.
feel like, everybody loves videos, everybody is video heavy, and LinkedIn now lets you do videos. But
Hmm.
I feel like I can't take not just the reels. I'm not talking about like the fun reels. I'm talking about the more informational videos that I put on Instagram. I feel like I can't just take those and put them on LinkedIn. I feel like they don't do as well. So, how do you see the video aspects of LinkedIn in terms of content creation and content marketing, if you will?
It's such a great question. And I think it's really strange because on every other social media platform and every other kind of place where creators share stuff, like video is so important. Like video is a big part of people's strategy. On LinkedIn, it's just not that way right now. And I don't really have a reason why. I think it's just the way the algorithm is set up. But so I really haven't seen anyone kill it like with a video specific content strategy. That doesn't mean that you can't share
Mhm.
it. I haven't seen a lot of people get a ton of engagement or really like kill it with videos. Actually, as I say that, there's one person who comes to mind. He's literally a video marketing agency owner. So if somebody's going to do it, it's going to
It's
be
going to
this
be
guy.
him.
Yeah, it's going to be this guy. All he posts are really videos like you're sharing of him talking, sharing information, but he's changed his profile settings so that the default is for the videos to show up. And so this might be
I
interesting to
didn't even know you
share.
could do that.
You can do that. So like if you turn on creator mode, which I encourage everybody who uses LinkedIn to do, like if you are going to be creating content for LinkedIn, there's only positives to turning on creator mode. It gives you some additional discoverability. It gives you additional like access to analytics. It's all good. It's all good. There's no
Nice.
downside. But you can adjust your profile to show either like all of your posts are going to show up on your page, and that's what the default is, or you can have all of the images that you post show up on your page, all of the videos you show up. So you can kind of like change up your profile to make it super specific if you're going to go heavy on videos. But
Yeah.
I have found for myself the thing that works the best is just like a photo and some text,
Okay.
which for all the photographers out there, I mean, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you have access to the tools that, you can really, really use to make your content shine. So, I'd recommend trying out a couple different posts. I personally, and really no one I know except for this one guy, has really found success using video, but try it, try just text posts, try a photo plus text, try polls, maybe take a video, like one of the videos you were talking about, get it transcribed using AI and
Mhm.
turn it into a LinkedIn article, which has some SEO benefits. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tanya. So you kind of segued. We were going to hit something else first, but we're going to talk about this since you brought up SEO because I love
Okay.
SEO. We have common friends who were recently on the podcast for the Simple SEO series that I did, and you were on the Talk Copy to Me podcast, and I listened to
Yeah.
this episode and I loved every bit of the episode. But I was laughing to myself because I'm like, Tanya's not going to be able to do that to me. Do you remember in that episode where you were trying to explain to Erin the importance of LinkedIn? And when you Googled her, that her LinkedIn came up second? Did
Yes.
you do that to me?
No, I'm doing it
Okay.
right now.
Oh,
I'm
I'll
doing it right
save you.
now.
It's 10.
Okay.
My LinkedIn is number 10. And so one of the things that I wanted to bring up with you is, you're saying SEO is great on LinkedIn. And that is a reason to start posting more content because like Instagram is not an SEO friendly platform. But when I heard that, Erin came up, her LinkedIn profile was number 2, I was like, I wonder where mine is. So when you Google me, everyone, I did it in an incognito window, mind you. The first thing that actually still pops up is my photography website.
Yeah.
My Dubsado certified specialist systems expert website is number two. Photography is still number one, which makes sense, everyone, because that business has been open way longer. I mean, I opened my
Mm.
photography business in 2012. So it's got a lot of longevity, but that comes first. And then it's my new system strategy website, coliejames.com. And then it gets into like the other social media platforms. So Instagram, Facebook, my YouTube is much further down than I'd like. One thing that I found was interesting is my own podcast is not coming up yet. Like
Mm.
individual podcast episodes from me being on other people's podcasts are in that top 10. And
Yeah,
then
I see
LinkedIn
him.
is number 10. So I think my goal, Tanya, now that you've mentioned the articles and the SEO capabilities, is I might try a little experiment. I love experimenting for my audience. I might try my hand at writing a few articles and doing a little bit more work on LinkedIn to see if there's any change from being number 10 to coming higher. Now, I think that that is a reasonable expectation for myself because as I work in my business to do less photography and do
Hmm.
more systems, I would hope that the platforms where I'm actually focusing and highlighting on my system services would come up higher than it is right now. But like I would say that right now when you search for me, it is pretty photography heavy.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that one thing that you could do to really like make that go quicker is think about the searches that people are looking for when photographers are looking for when they want their system set up
Mhm.
specifically, and like title your LinkedIn articles with that query, right? Because LinkedIn articles are indexed by Google. And so like oftentimes when I'll search something, and this is very meta, right? Like I did this the other day because I wanted to prove this to someone. I
Oh, you're
Googled,
my kind of girl, Tanya. I mean, when someone
yeah.
asks me a question, I'm like, no, just give me a little while. I'll do the experiment for you and I'll come back and give
Right.
you the data.
Right, right. What did I look up? I looked up something like how to write a LinkedIn article. So this was very meta, but the first thing that popped up was a LinkedIn article from 2015. And so this
Ooh, there's a
guy
lot of
just,
potential.
yes. And so I noticed that like every so now and then he'll go in and do a little update. And the very first thing in that article is a link to his program about whatever his program is.
Hmm.
So he's getting leads from that like 8 years later on this like one LinkedIn article.
Nice.
So if you can find the right query or the right like keyword or the right headline, I think a LinkedIn article just for its SEO benefits alone would be like fantastic.
See, and I would okay, so you know what I'm you just got my mind going, Tanya. So I've been trying to write more blog articles because one of the things that I've admitted on this podcast, at least in the last few months, is that what made my photography business so successful was I really like honed in on my SEO. I worked on my SEO
Yeah.
nonstop. I constantly updated my website. I blogged at least every week. Like I did those things to build my photography business.
Yeah.
And then when it came to my systems business, it was like I all of a sudden forgot that I knew how to build a business. Like I was still running Dubsado setups off of my photography website for a year, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
crazy when you think about that could have been a year that I was building the SEO on this new website just with my name instead of Colie James Photography. But one of the things that you just got me thinking about was I've written a few articles that are like things that people are searching for. How can I set my Dubsado up quickly? How do I know what to put in a workflow? Like those kinds of things. And I have blog posts, but they're not getting up there yet, right? But I
Mhm.
wonder if I wrote different like same topic but not copy and paste because everyone that will not help you to copy and paste from one platform to another, but I'm wondering if I like rewrote an article with the same kinds of topics if I could see
Yeah.
how it did on LinkedIn for SEO versus my website for SEO.
Absolutely. I would try it, you know? Why not? Why not? And then these become like pillar pieces of content that you can share over and over in different places. Like there's so much that's a whole rabbit hole
Yeah.
that I'm just like a noob on, but I'm learning about. Actually, yeah. So SEO is a whole nother thing. And that's, earlier when you asked like is LinkedIn more of a search engine or is it more of a social media? That's another way how it's really like all of it. It's
Yeah.
all of it all at once.
So let's talk about the content because you want to write articles that will help you with your SEO. It just also helps you be seen as an authority in your space and all those good things that we all want. But what about the other content? I feel like everyone talks about a good balance of your
Yeah.
content on any social media platform. Like how much should you be informing? How much should you be entertaining? How much should you be selling, because selling is not a dirty word on this podcast. But what have you seen that is most effective for people who are actively trying to connect and also
Mhm.
sell on LinkedIn? Like, do you have any ideas of the different like buckets? Like, how much should I do informative pieces versus entertainment pieces versus just thought pieces? Anything for the audience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that that's like, you get to find your own balance. I mean, I think some people just naturally are really, really good at like, they're activists. They're like soapbox kind of people. Like they're really good at sharing their perspective and getting people like riled up and like, towards a vision. Like people just have a skill set in that. Whereas other people are very like, they're teachers by nature. They're very good at explaining difficult, like nuanced concepts in a very like easy to understand way. And so I think a lot of it depends on your strengths and your abilities and your preferences. But as you asked this question, I started thinking back to when I launched my LinkedIn content sprint back in April, and I did a little experiment. This was my first foray into like UTM codes and really
Okay.
like getting into the data, right? And so at that time, I had about 8,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I had about 800 email subscribers. So I had a ton more going on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or so you would think. But because of the UTM codes that I set up, I was able to see that even though 10 times as many people were on my LinkedIn than they were on my email, in actuality, 10, and this is like a weird inverse thing. This is like, this couldn't be more perfect, but 10% more of the people who visited my sales page came from my
Email.
email than they did LinkedIn. And that just showed me like, email is the place where I think that your more like selling content
Mm-hmm.
lives, but people have got to get on your email list somehow. And like really my entire email list has been built off of LinkedIn. So kind
Okay.
of my thought, my strategy, my way of doing things is I think of LinkedIn as that place where I'm really sharing like in like valuable information, like spicy status quo shifting content. Like you want to show up as that approachable authority, that go-to values aligned voice for your audience. You want to build trust, you want to build excitement, you want to be enthusiastic. You want to build connection through your content so that you're like consistently being shown to new audiences that are following you. And then over and over thinking about new ways to share ways to get on your email list, whether they're
Mm-hmm.
freebies, lead magnets, webinars, joint venture webinars, just there's so many different ways to get people on your email list from LinkedIn, right? But over time, like the right people who are willing to raise their hand and say like, I want to know more, will travel from LinkedIn based on your content to your email list.
Yeah.
So that's how I think of it. Email is where I kind of sell, still do it in a value forward way. Like
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not going to buy anything, you're going to learn a lot. But I think of LinkedIn as a place where I really get to be like that cheerleader, that like, just that enthusiastic, approachable go-to voice. Does that help? Does
It
that make
does.
sense?
It does. And the thing that I was thinking about as you were talking about this is that I feel like in so many ways, we feel like we don't need to move people from the social media platforms into our email because it's like, well, no, they follow me on Instagram. Why do I need to email them when I'm posting similar things on Instagram? And I would just direct people back to like the algorithm. Again, all those people that raise their hand, even on LinkedIn, because not everyone is seeing everything, even though I truly believe, a bigger portion of your audience and your audience's connections are seeing your material on LinkedIn, they're still not being seen by everyone. Literally, the only platform that you have complete control over for everyone to see everything that you put out is your email. And so
Yeah.
we all need to be a little bit more focused and like maybe we need to put it in a calendar. I've been talking a lot about calendars and like pink Sharpies. I feel like at least once a month, at least a couple times a month, you need to actually do the deed of asking people on your social media platforms to join your email list. And as Tanya said, sometimes you give them a juicy freebie. Sometimes you just need to remind them that you have emails that you send, and if they want to hear more from you, this is how they can do it.
Absolutely 100%. And there's a resource that I know you're going to be graciously putting in your show notes. And that includes like different prompts for, like prompts for content that really does well on LinkedIn. And I
Mhm.
believe that one of them is like a way to kind of like share your lead magnet. Even if you have, don't feel like you have to create new lead magnets every week or every month. Like just share the old one in a different way, like share a
Yes.
different story surrounding it, or share like a testimonial from someone who downloaded it and what they got out of it. Like there's so many ways to share the same thing, and just keep doing it. Right. I love that pink Sharpie idea. I'm kind of rummaging around here because I have a pink Sharpie and I have this like paper calendar. If you're watching the video podcast, you can see it, but I'm all about like old school, like just write it down, put it in your face.
Yes. Well, and I said it recently, and I wasn't actually talking about asking people to join your email list. I was talking about sales. I was saying
Mm-hmm.
that, when you're planning your content, you have to be very intentional on how many times you're asking your audience for a sale. Like, not just, coyly mentioning that you did, like, seriously, like, if you would like to join me in my program, this is the link to click. And so if you do those on your calendar in like a certain color, then you can look at a glance. And like I said, to do it in green because they're going to pay you money. But like if you don't see any green on your calendar, then you know that you haven't done your job for the month.
Yeah.
I would argue strongly that just as much as I'm telling you to actually ask for the sale, you have to ask people to join your email list. I mean, I
Mm.
did a very big promotion last month and I only ended up with like 10 unsubscribers the whole time. And I sent so many emails. I think we're afraid to send emails because we're afraid that people are going to unsubscribe or not open. I mean, but if you don't send emails, you won't know how they'll land. Just like, every other aspect of like social media, you have to do the work. And if people don't like it, believe me, you will know. And then you will know to do something different.
I couldn't like, please, like say it louder for the people in the back. Like I'm obsessed with this concept and I've really been thinking about how it ties into our fear of like being too much, like
Mhm.
being too much, being not enough, which at the end of the day is just the fear of being us, being ourselves. And it's like, if we can figure out a way to celebrate the unsubscribes, if we can figure out a way to like give ourselves a little treat when we send, like more emails than we think, like we need to celebrate ourselves for doing this work because it is really important. And then I think it trickles down into other areas of our life. Like what we are doing is so important, and for the right people it is exactly what they are looking for. And if we aren't going to speak up about it and talk about it, like no one's going to do it for us. 100% send emails and use LinkedIn to add you to your list.
Yes. I mean, and it's really strange. I haven't actually shared this anywhere else because I just discovered it in the last few days. I was looking through my unsubscribes because what I like to do for unsubscribes is I just basically want to know how long have you been on my list? Like what
Mm,
freebie brought you in? And what email did you leave my list on? Because if the email that you left was like a drastically different content than the
mhm.
freebie that you came in on, maybe you were in fact interested in the freebie that brought you in, but this other content that I'm sharing just isn't hitting with you. And I saw a name. I'm not going to say it out loud because that would just be rude. But I saw an email, and I have a good memory. It's going, but I used to have a really good memory. And I was like, no, they've unsubscribed before. So I clicked on the profile. This particular person joined my list in May, stayed on my list for a month, and then unsubscribed. And then rejoined with a different freebie like a couple weeks later,
Yep.
stayed on my list for a month, and then unsubscribed. That person has done this 3 times. But instead
Yeah.
of being offended that they're unsubscribing, I'm like, okay, there's something about my content, the freebies that I'm actually sharing, that's like bringing them in, and they're actually opening all my emails. And what I realized was every email that they've unsubscribed on has been a podcast episode email. So maybe they
Mm,
just don't like podcast content, which is okay.
sure.
But like
Right.
I wouldn't know that if I didn't actually look at the unsubscribes and do more than like wail and scream and be like, bye, Felicia, because really it is bye, Felicia. But also, I feel like there is value in looking at your unsubscribes because at the end of the day, if they unsubscribe, that's one less person that you have to worry about entertaining, selling to, all of that good stuff. They're actually doing you a favor by unsubscribing because if they unsubscribe, if they are bold enough to hit the unsubscribe button, they were never going to buy from you in the first place, ever.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's okay. We just, what's that phrase? We bless and release.
We bless and release. That's exactly it. I learned this as a fundraiser. Like not everybody is going to get involved with your cause. And like that's impossible anyway. Like if everybody loves what you're doing, then I don't know. That's just impossible. That's just impossible. You've got to draw a line in the sand and like really have parameters around what it is that you do, and the right people will self-select in and the right people will self-select out. And
Mhm.
it's all good. It's all good.
I mean, and unless you have one piece of content that you put out and like 10% of your list unsubscribes, it's never about you. It is
Right.
always about the person who is unsubscribing. Again, maybe they've gotten what they needed from you. Maybe this particular email wasn't what they needed to hear that day, but it is almost never about you. And it is almost never an indication that you need to send less emails. Because if
Right.
I can send, I think it was like 10 emails, if I can send 10 emails in 4 days, and less than 10 people unsubscribe, those people are still interested in what I have to say enough to stay on my list. Maybe now was not the right time for them, but they're staying on my list indicates that perhaps in the future it will be the right time for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so much that you can't really see, right? On email, you can see a lot more than you can on, say, a platform like LinkedIn.
Mhm.
But on email, like people are forwarding your emails to their friends and saying, oh my gosh, isn't this cool, right? You don't get to see that. People are maybe like saving it in their, great emails folder. You're not seeing that. So there's a lot more like energetic resonance that's happening behind the scenes than we can ever see as creators, right? Whether you're on LinkedIn or sending emails.
Absolutely. Okay, Tanya, I think we're going to jump into one more topic, and it's something that, again, I heard you say on the Talk Copy to Me podcast.
Yeah.
Can I be lazy on LinkedIn? Actually, no. I know from you that I can be lazy, but I want you to tell the listening audience exactly how lazy they can be on LinkedIn.
Yes, I love talking about being lazy. I love being lazy on LinkedIn. So right now, as we record this, it's August, and I'm calling it Easy August because I'm not doing a whole lot. Like I think I have like this podcast interview with you. I have like 2 clients that I'm kind of working with here and there. I'm working like 2 days a week. I'm like chilling. August is like I'm like
So
chilling.
nice.
And it's so nice. And, like you can do that and be pretty active on LinkedIn and like it works out. Like, so I guess what I'll say about being lazy on LinkedIn is the LinkedIn algorithm itself and the fact that it's still so unsaturated, like we talked about before, really lends itself to you only needing to like, if you just show up once per week, that is like golden. That's like chef's kiss. Like that's like enough. That is so enough. And part of the reason for that is because there's a greater ratio of users to actual content still on the platform. So your posts linger longer in the feed. Like if you post something on a Monday, you're still going to be getting hits on it on Thursday, Friday, the following week. Every time somebody leaves a comment, it gets a little boost. So other platforms where, it's best practices to post every day, like you just don't have to do that on LinkedIn, right? And the other piece around it too is like content is important. Like content is king, as they all say, but engagement is really just
Yeah.
as important. Like engagement is queen, if you will. So like I encourage everybody who's listening, if you're thinking about using LinkedIn, but you're kind of like another platform, like I
Another
don't know,
platform.
like I don't know, like just do what I did when I was, nonprofit ED, like figuring this out, and just put like a 45-minute chunk on your calendar, right? And just play with it. Play with it for like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and see what starts to happen, right? Like maybe repurpose a piece of content from another platform and share it, and then start engaging with people, right? Like engage with the people who are engaging in your post. Look at who's viewed your profile and like start, building relationship with them. See, think about 5 people who have the audience that you want to be in front of and start commenting on their content, right? Use the search bar to find, think about the people that you love to serve. Like think about what titles or professional keywords they would use to describe themselves and search for them in the search bar and like send them a message and become their friend. Like a lot of this stuff is very simple. It's not easy. It's not
Mhm.
easy because fear gets in the way. This whole thing around like, oh, like what if they think I'm spammy? Like all of these like worries get in the way. But really, what I have found is LinkedIn is a very friendly platform. It's not like a Twitter. Like it's not, people are not going to troll you in the same way that they will in the YouTube comments. Like it's a professional platform. It's kind of like think of it as going to like a conference or a networking gathering. I really think of LinkedIn as a 24/7 professional networking gathering, and people are nice, right? They're drinking their glass of wine, they're having a charcuterie, they're there to meet people, they're there to shake hands and build their network. And so, show up, say hi,
Mhm.
make some friends, and just do that for like a little chunk of time consistently, week over week. And I like honestly, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. It's like going to a conference in your pajamas.
Okay, I'd be all about that. I do really feel, I mean, and this is going to be one of our last thoughts, but I really do feel like LinkedIn is the place for you to do that. We're all talking about reaching out and networking and doing more of these kinds of things because, again, all of the social media platforms are getting very congested with all of the
Mm,
content all of the time. But I do feel like people expect you to reach out on LinkedIn way more than they expect you to reach out on, like, say, Instagram and Facebook, even though that's really how Facebook started. I feel like Facebook has
yeah.
just really gone away from the, making friends and adding those kinds of things. But LinkedIn is still very much the, hey, reach out to me. Let's have a one-to-one conversation. Let's build a connection so that we can perhaps work on something in the future. I do think that, like, for the business world, LinkedIn is definitely where that's at right now.
Absolutely. And I think that, even if you feel like your clients are not on LinkedIn, I will say, first of all, I'll say they probably are, even if they're not like searchable by the way that you can
Hmm.
if they're like just a straight up business person. What I will say is I think that you can absolutely find amazing referral partners on LinkedIn. So let's say you were a newborn photographer, right? So like who are some of the people that would refer to you? Maybe people who own newborn baby boutique stores, right?
Hmm.
Or like,
Doulas and
yeah,
like nurses and things like that. Yes. Anybody that
yes.
works in the realm of people having babies, like people who offer, I mean, I don't know why this is coming to mind. I think I must have seen a post on Facebook or something, but like people who run music classes for toddlers. I mean, I used to take Chloe to
Yes.
Gymboree and some local ones all the time. Those people who own those businesses are on LinkedIn with profiles. You're
Yes.
right.
They are. They are. So again, even if you don't think your clients are on there, like I 100% can guarantee that some amazing referral partners will be. And so maybe that's how you use LinkedIn, you know?
So if you guys got anything from this episode, it's you are allowed to be lazy on LinkedIn and you can, in fact, make amazing networking opportunities and connections on LinkedIn. Tanya, tell the listening audience where they can find you on the internet.
Well, definitely LinkedIn for sure.
I wanted to see if she was going to say that first, guys.
I would say that is a great place to get in touch with me and kind of hang out with me, right? That's my playground. And the other place might just be my podcast. I have a podcast called The Campfire Circle, and we really explore what it looks like to change the concept of like the ultimate space of leadership being the boardroom table and changing it to a campfire circle because that's where
Mhm.
we share our stories, that's where we build community, and that's where there is always room. So I'd say those two places are great. And then I've got that resource in the show notes as well if you want to take a stab at sharing some LinkedIn prompts.
Ah, Tanya, thank you so much for this insightful conversation. This was amazing. I'm going to have you back because you know what? If for anything, I'm going to run a few experiments and I'm going to bring you back to see if my LinkedIn is still at number 10.
I love that. I love a good experiment. I love a good debrief. Like I'll bring my Erlenmeyer flask. Like let's get into let's
Yeah.
do it. Let's do it.
All right, everyone. That's it for this episode. See you next time.
Bye.